Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Ajnana Dimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tumeva Madhacha Pita Tumeva Bandhuscha Sakha Tumeva Vidya Dravinam Tumeva Sarvam Amriteshwari Ma Tumeva Sarvam Amriteshwari Ma Tumeva Sarvam Amriteshwari Ma. Om Amriteshwari Namah. We'll begin with a short meditation. Kindly sit straight and make sure your vertebral column, spinal column is erect. It'll cut down the lethargy and also the thoughts in the mind. Slowly become aware of your breathing. As a result of the awareness, your rate of breathing will also go down, and you will feel the relaxation, and slowly the eyes will close without any compulsion. And now we'll chant Om 3 times. And as we chant Om, imagine the sound of Om to arise from your navel area and deep within you. And visualize the sound traveling upwards along your spine, cleansing your body, your mind, and the atmosphere around you. Kindly take a deep breath. Feel the pulsation of the sound of Om, the vibrations, deep within each and every cell of your body. And as the reverberation goes into your body, feel the relaxation, the silence, the bliss that occurs as a result of the silence. Once again, try to focus upon your breath, breathing normally. Again, with full awareness of each inhalation and exhalation. Just watch your body like an instrument. And now as you breathe in, chant the syllable, the mantra, Ma silently along with your in-breath. And when you breathe out, chant Om silently along with your out-breath. So Ma when you breathe in and Om when you breathe out. So kindly continue like this. Ma. And then hold your breath for a few seconds. Don't hold it too long. It's just to increase the awareness. And now breathe out chanting Om. So it's Ma. Hold your breath. Om. Ma. Om. And continue for some time. Slowly and slowly the reverberations of Ma and Om become more and more subtle. You can just hear the vibrations and not the physical sound of Ma and Om. Ma is a representation of divine love, and Om of divine light. As the vibrations of Ma and Om go deeper and deeper into the subtler realm, feel the divine love, which is a representation of Ma, and divine light, which is a representation of Om, bubbling up from your heart to all the people in this world. Feel your heart expanding, just like the ocean or the clouds, the sky, the universe. Feel the bliss, feel the light. Imagine the light going out from your heart to all the beings in this world, which is filled with love, with peace, with compassion, and with bliss. And as the light falls on each and every one of them, imagine they also become more loving, more peaceful, more blissful, and more compassionate. And while imagining so, we can chant the Lokasamastha Prayer 9 times. Om Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. 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 Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. You may open your eyes now. Just sit quietly for just a couple of more minutes. Dhyayamo Dhvlavagundhanavatim Tejo Mayim Naishtikim Snigdha Pangavilokinim Bhagavatim Mandasmita Mukhim Valsalyamritavarshinim Sumadhuram Sankirtanalapinim Shamangim Madhusikta Sutim Amritanandatmikam Ishwarim Om Narayanam Patma Bhuvam Vasishtam Shaktim cha Tatputram Parasharam cha Vyasam Shugam Gaudapadam Mahandam Govinda Yogindram Adhasya Shishyam Sri Shankaracharyam Adhasya Patmapadam cha Hastamalakam cha Shishyam Tam Todakam Bhartika Karyamanyan Asmat Gurum Santadamanadosmi Om Anega Janma Samprapta Karma Bandhavidahini Atma Jnana Pradhanena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Amriteshwari Namaha. In the last session, we saw that Chitraketu, who was laughing at the scene where Parvati Devi was sitting on the lap of Lord Shiva, and he was making fun of the Lord, and whereby Parvati Devi got upset and cursed him by saying that he would take a birth as Asura, a demon, in the next birth. And Chitraketu did not say anything in return to Parvati Devi, because he knew that whether it be a blessing or a curse, it occurs to you through your karma, and thanks to your karma. And as I was explaining last time, some people say that, I have been under the influence of black magic, or somebody did this to me, did that to me. And we can find innumerable reasons for not pointing our difficulties at our own karma, because we want to escape from it. So we always want to point at somebody else. So as Amma says, when you point one finger, there are 4 fingers pointed towards you. So we have to understand that whether it's a curse or it comes as a blessing, it's our own karma that has come through that. And so what happened was Lord Chitraketu understanding this principle, and he being a great devotee of Lord Hari, or you can say Lord Mahavishnu, or Brahma, or Shiva, anything you can call, it's the same one power, the Paramatman, which has come in different forms and names. So Lord Shiva explains to Parvati, saying that, look, he is a great devotee of Lord Hari, so he's also a great devotee of me. And he's just like me also, as being a devotee. I'm also a devotee of Lord Hari. And that's why he won't react to you, and he won't respond to your curse. So he said, then the great devotees, Lord Shiva said that great devotees, there is for a great devotee, there is no enemy, nor a friend, nor a stranger. And he sees the self. So it's a true devotee. You have to understand, it's a true devotee. And he sees the self, or he sees his Ishta Devata, his Lord Hari, or Krishna, or whatever you can call that, in everyone. And he doesn't see them separate from his own Ishta Devata. And so he sees through each and every individual, even though they are different, and through the multiplicity, he sees only the unity. So such is the nature of a devotee. So he says, Lord Shiva said that this great man, Chitraketu, is a devotee of Lord, and he loves the Lord so intensely, and that he is even-sighted everywhere and ever peaceful. And whatever people may say, let them praise him or ridicule him or get angry at him or say good things about him, it doesn't matter. And he says he doesn't have any displeasure to anybody. So Lord Shiva says you cannot gauge a devotee, a true devotee, because they are beyond all calculations. And so you cannot understand them. So hearing this, the words of Lord Shiva, Sri Shuka said, the goddess Parvati was pacified and no longer wondered about the conduct of Chitraketu. Because she was always thinking that why such a person, Chitraketu, is he a really bad person when he makes fun of Lord Shiva like this? Because he was saying one of the worst things, right? He was saying that Lord Shiva is such a bad person that normally even a householder who's married would not have his wife sit on his lap in the public. Whereas here he sees Lord Shiva making Parvati Devi sit on his lap. So, and he was making fun of that. So, what happened is Parvati Devi was naturally doubtful as to what kind of a person is Chitraketu and whether he has that achieved any mental purity. So, when she was assuaged by the words of Lord Shiva, she was no longer having any doubts about the conduct of Chitraketu. So the great devotee Chitraketu, though capable of cursing the Devi in return, submitted himself to the curse without any reaction. So Chitraketu was not an ordinary person either. He could have cursed the Devi back, saying that if you curse me, I will curse you also. So, but instead, Chitraketu kept quiet. So he says, such is the conduct. Such conduct is the sign of a holy man. Why? Because they just accept everything. They don't react. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, they don't react. As I was saying last time, when Lord Krishna was cursed, so the Lord Krishna, with a smile, accepted the curse, saying from Gandhari, saying that, Mother, I know, and your curse is going to come true, because that is the law of karma. And so you are doing nothing except predicting what is going to happen in future. So I accept it with my folded hands and thank you. So assuming the form of an asura but endowed with knowledge and devotion, this Chitraketu was born as Vritra in the Dakshinagni of Twashta, who sacrificed in it for creating an agent of destroying Indra. So you remember the story where Twashta was doing the sacrifice. Why? Because his son was killed by Indra. And so what happened was when this sacrifice was happening, so Twashta created out of the sacrifice Chitraketu, who was born as Vritra at that time. So he said, I have now answered your question. So he was asking why, the question was, why did Chitraketu, who was such a great devotee, was born as a demon. And even though he was born as a demon, he had so much of devotion. And that which even Indra was appalled by his devotion. And Indra actually had killed Vishwarupa, who was Twashta's son. And Vishwarupa was their own guru. And so Indra had killed, and because of which Twashta got angry, and out of the sacrifice made Vritra and to kill Indra. And in the battle that ensued, Indra killed Vritra. So that was a question asked by Parikshit to Lord Shika, that why was Vritra such a great person? And in spite of being an asura. So now you know the answer to the question. So I have now answered your question how Vritra, an asura, could have constant remembrance and love of the Lord. So this is what we are doing now is we are coming to the end of the 6th skanda, and then there is the birth of the Maruts and the observance of Pumsavana and all these things which I'm skipping over. And now I'm going to skanda, the 7th skanda, which is the prologue of the 7th skanda, because the other ones are not that important, and then it's also very controversial. It's not relevant to the West, especially because they talk so much about how a wife should treat the husband, and what all the wife should do to the husband. And in this day, it's not possible. So let's talk about something which is more practical. So this is the 7th skanda, so the prologue. So it's saying that the 7th skanda, consisting of 15 chapters and 750 verses, is said to deal with the topic Udi, or how tendencies produced by karma influence our life. When by misbehavior men provoke the displeasure of holy personages, that displeasure of theirs causes the downfall of these men. And contrariwise, when by service and humility men please holy personages, their goodwill can lead to their spiritual evolution. So this is what happens. So when we ridicule holy people, then they go down the path of the spirituality. Whereas when you serve them and when you praise them, that what happens is you go up in the spiritual path. So one question is that many of you may have a doubt. Why should you praise? Why should you praise a holy man? And can't you just not do it? So generally what happens is when a great soul like Amma, also a realized master comes, they are also interacting in the world with other things, right? And they do a lot of things. So when they do a lot of good things, so they accumulate a lot of punya, or they get all the good deeds, the merits. But while living in this world also, they go through some papa or demerits. And when they are breathing, so many of the bacteria are killed. When they are walking, their ants may die or insects may die. And things may happen like that. So the papa, the demerits they get, what they do, they don't want that. And what do they want to do with this, the punya, the merits? They are least worried about that. So what happens is they freely give these to people who want it or who would like to take it. So those people who praise them, they get the punya, and those people who ridicule them get the papa from them. So that's a kind of a law. So that's why it is said you should praise a great being, a realized master. Not that they want it, but when it is for you to praise them. And when you praise them, what happens? You get the punya, the merits. And when you ridicule them, you get the papa. At least, one thing you can do is not to ridicule them. Even if you don't want to praise them, you can just keep your mouth shut. Right? So, but they won't. Sometimes, as you know, in this life, the biography of Amma, many people have done so many things to her and suffered as a consequence. It's not Amma who's doing it, but their own actions, which has produced such results. One such occasion is when, that young man who was prompted by Amma's brother to kill Amma. And Amma coolly said, okay, if you want to kill me, you can kill me. There's no problem. I'll just sit and meditate. At that time, kill me. And Amma went into meditation. But the moment that man was trying to have that intention of killing Amma, he had a severe chest pain and he fell down. And what happened? He was admitted in the hospital, and third or fourth day he passed away. And Amma went to visit him in the hospital also and console him. But why did he have that? Because all the demerits from Amma that Amma wanted to, has freely, gave it to him. It went to him. That was the natural law. It is like that. It is like water which flows from the top to the bottom. So the demerits will easily flow. But it's very difficult to get the merits. So because that is rising up. So that's why, at least if you do not want to praise, you should not ridicule the great beings, saints. So here they say, but their goodwill. So what happens is the humility will please the holy personages, and their goodwill can lead to spiritual evolution. And they said 2 examples are given of this here. One is of Narada himself, the principal narrator of this Kanda. As a leader of the Gandharva singers, he misbehaved, casting ridicule at sages who had assembled for a Brahma Satra. So in Narada, what happened was in his previous birth, before he became sage Narada, what did he do? He was the leader of the Gandharva singers. So he was ridiculing the sages who had come for the Brahma Satra, or a great sacrifice. As a consequence, he was degraded to the condition of a servant boy in the next birth in the human species. So, but luckily he still got a human body, but he was born as a son of a servant. And then he happened to serve some of the holy men during the retreat in their rainy season, which is the Chaturmasya, and helped by their blessing, he took to asceticism and attained to the state of a Devarshi in a subsequent embodiment. So in that birth, what happened? He was only 3 or 4. But in the next birth, when he was born as a boy, he went to an ashram where he served the holy men who were there. And they had gathered there, and it's called the Chaturmasya. Chatur means 4. 4 months where the sannyasins do not travel anywhere. So they just sit in one place and they do their practices, their spiritual practices. So he went and served them with so much of humility and sincerity. So because of that, he got their blessings. And so what happened? He was raised to the state of a Deva Rishi. Deva means a god, godlike Rishi. So Rishi who's the godlike Rishi, or the Rishi of the gods, or equivalent to the gods. And the second instance of the attendants of Vaikunta, Jaya and Vijaya, who for their misbehavior toward the group of sages known as the Kumaras were cursed to become Asuras. So Jaya and Vijaya were the Dwarapalakas, or the doorkeepers of Lord Vishnu. And the story goes like this: when Jaya and Vijaya were guarding Lord Vishnu's doors, Lord Vishnu told them that, I am going to rest. So please don't let anybody in. And so Lord Vishnu went to rest, and it was half an hour later that these Kumaras, that is Sananda, Sanatana, and the four Kumaras came together, and they wanted to go and have an audience with Lord Vishnu. So what happened? Jaya and Vijaya said, no, you cannot go in. And then they said, no, we want to see Lord Vishnu, it's very important. And they said, no, you cannot go in, and if you go in, you have to kill us. You have to fight with us. So it was then they cursed Jaya and Vijaya. So what happened was, interestingly, Amma had discussed about this, I think a year ago. Jaya and Vijaya were doing their duty, right? Because Vishnu, it was Lord Vishnu who said that you should not allow anybody to come in. And they were just doing and abiding by Lord Vishnu's commands. So was it wrong? No. So Amma was asking this question, then what is wrong about this? Why did these Kumaras curse him? So, most of us could not answer. Then Amma herself gave the answer. They could have said, Lord Vishnu is resting. And they had told, Lord Vishnu has told me that not to allow anybody. So will you please sit? I'll bring you a cup of tea or coffee. And when Lord Vishnu allows me to go in, I will announce that you are here and then take you. So they could have been much more polite instead of saying, no, you cannot go in. Or they could have had said that, please, can you please wait? Let me go and ask Vishnu if you can come in. So instead of that, they were so adamant of not letting them in. So that was the reason why they were cursed. And so they were given the choice. They said, you can take, it is so funny because they were given this choice that you can become the devotees of Vishnu and take many births and then come back, or you become the enemies of Vishnu, and then if you become enemies of Vishnu, you will have only 3 births. And after the 3rd birth, you will come back. So what happens? If you become the enemy, actually it is much, much more powerful than becoming a devotee. So why? Because, when you can see the stories in their, he's saying that their attitude towards Mahavishnu in these births have made them exemplars of Vidvesha Bhakti. Vidvesha means anger or hatred. Hate and bhakti with hatred. So if you have hatred towards Amma, that's also bhakti. That doesn't mean you should be having any kind of enmity with Amma. But that's not recommended, because it's only for people who are really, really strong. And if you want to fight with Amma, so with Kali. And so, so what happened? So with Dvesha Bhakti, that is devotion born out of hatred, or devotion through confrontation. And mortal fear fixes one's mind on the enemy in this case, and the Lord himself, as much as affection and reverence do. And the mind being in both kinds of emotion, fixed on God, it gets purified and elevated alike in the end. So whether you have so much of hatred or whether you have so much love, what happens? Your mind is always fixed. And so because of that, it is fixed on God, it gets purified. So this concept is dealt with elaborately in the prologue to the 10th Skanda. In these 3 births, these attendants of Vishnu, Jaya and Vijaya, were born as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. That is the first birth. Then the second one was Ravana and Kumbhakarna, in the second birth, and Shishupala and Dandavaktra, respectively. So they were born, these 3, as in the time of Shishupala and Dandavaktra, when it was Lord Krishna's time. So while the story of redemption of all this is taken up separately in other skandhas, the case of Hiranyakashipu is specially treated here by Shuka. The discourse on this topic is in the form of quotation of a conversation of Narada with Yudhishthira, who at the campus of his Rajasuya sacrifice was surprised to see the inveterate traducers of Krishna like Shishupala and Dandavaktra joining the spiritual aura of Krishna on being killed by him in the battle. So this is here they are explaining, that Lord Shuka is explaining this through the story where in Mahabharata, where Yudhishthira, who was surprised to see Shishupala and Dandavaktra, who were fighting with Lord Krishna and being killed by Lord Krishna, merged in him. So he was so surprised and said, how can these people merge with you? So that's, Lord Narada is explaining the story. And the story of Hiranyakashipu's confrontation with Vishnu is identical with the Prahlada saga. Prahlada, Hiranya's son, is well known as the great exemplar of divine love wherever the Indian devotional tradition is remembered or studied. It is through Prahlada's mouth that the Bhagavata propounds its famous dictum of 9-fold bhakti, discipline. That is Sravanam, Kirtanam, Mananam, Padaseva. So all these 9 folds of bhakti is being actually expounded by Prahlada. And the story of that, which we will see later. And the story of Prahlada is told in all detail as the main theme of the 7th Skanda. So we are going to see the story of Prahlada. And then care is taken in the course of the narrative to illustrate the main theme, that is Uti, or how holy association and works lead to transformation of character and spiritual upliftment. So associating yourself with holy men is going to transform the character. And Prahlada is himself taken as an example. Being the scion of an Asura family, his natural tendency should have been towards life of violence and sensual indulgences. But his inclinations were all transformed when he was in his mother's womb and happened to hear the spiritual discourses that the sage Narada gave to his mother. So the story, we will see the story later, but just a preview of what's going to happen. By the great spiritual power of the sage the tendencies of the fetus changed. So the great sages have such a power even to change the tendencies in the fetus itself. And Prahlada from birth grew up as a devotee par excellence. And how his open devotional attitude was a red rag to his father, Hiranya. And how he tried to reform Prahlada through instruction, how in spite of all that, the boy not only continued to be entrenched in his devotional mood, but even began to preach the devotional philosophy to all Asura children. So, not only that, he was not transformed also, but he also started preaching this love for Lord Vishnu to all the Asura children, other Asura children. So they were also getting transformed. And now, the fathers were alarmed because there will not be any Asuras anymore. The clan is going to die because all of them are going to become bhaktas, devotees. And so there will be no demons. So this happens when, we all go to Amma, right? Many of us have had this experience. When we all go to Amma, our family members don't want to go, us to go. Why? Because then you will become deeply entrenched in that love with Amma, and then you will change and you won't behave normally, just like the other relatives, and then they will lose your company and also all what you had done with them and your love for them. So they are really afraid and nervous when their own relatives go to Amma. That's why Amma says, when in India, when a sannyasin goes to a house, they will very respectfully receive the sannyasin, do all the pada puja and all these things. But if one of their own children becomes a sannyasin, they don't like that. Why? Because they are going to lose them. So here, what happened is when Prahlada started teaching, then his father got really alarmed. So Hiranya, that is Hiranyaksha, who was the king of the demons, got really alarmed. And so Hiranya subjected him to horrible persecutions and ordered him to be executed, but failed to cause him the least injury on account of the protection offered to him by Mahavishnu. How he therefore attempted to behead him himself. How in order to fulfill the devotee Prahlad's declaration given in reply to Hiranya's challenge that the Lord was everywhere, including the neighboring pillar. He emerged. So what happened? Lord had to fulfill that promise when Hiranyaksha, in the end, towards his end of his life, he was asking Prahlada, where is your Lord? So Prahlada said, my Lord is everywhere. And Father, you are also that Lord. You don't see that? So he said, he got angry and then he said, is Lord here? Here. Is he in that pillar? So he said, yes. So he takes his mace and breaks the pillar. And so from the pillar emerged the man-lion, that is Narasimha, and destroyed Hiranyakashipu. All these are graphically described in several chapters. It is specially pointed out that in this and other cases, destruction at the hands of the Lord is really redemption. So don't think that destruction in the hands of Lord is that you're going to become nothing. It's actually redemption. By God is redeeming you by taking away the evil tendencies. It's not an act of revenge, but his way of bestowing his grace on one who practices the devotional path of communion through confrontation, which is with Dvesha Bhakti. So as I was saying earlier, there is no enemy for the Lord. And even if you practice that enmity, the Lord will redeem you. Why? Through that bhakti, through that confrontation. And the narration of these events is followed by the great hymn that Prahlada addresses to the Lord. It is one of the longest and noblest of the hymns in the Bhagavatam. It gathers into itself all the thoughts and sentiments included in the philosophy of bhakti and jnana, and integrates them into a thrilling and uplifting bhakti lyric in the form of a praise. The high watermark of it is reaching when Prahlada, addressing the Lord, says that liberation is significant for him only if all his fellow sufferers in the samsara are also liberated. He says, "O Lord, sages generally concern themselves only with their own salvation. They strive for it in solitude without any thought for the salvation of others. But I do not desire salvation for myself alone, abandoning all the other creatures to their miserable fate. I find no shelter other than thee for these creatures caught in the travails of samsara." So this is what Prahlada says. So you just see this devotion. He's asking liberation or mukti, not for just himself. He's asking mukti for everyone in this world. And he's saying, look at the other creatures. So that is the great difference between a great devotee like Prahlada and a great sage. The sage always, or a person, a spiritual aspirant, thinks only about himself or herself and wants liberation for themselves. But Prahlada is asking liberation for entire world. So that is the beauty about it. And the same note is struck in Ranti Deva's prayer, showing how Vaishnava devotionalism rose to the same level of self-abnegating universal love as embodied in the Bodhisattva ideal of Buddhism. So it's also in that Bodhisattva part of Buddhism. And in 5 chapters, starting from the 11th, a brief description is given of the ideals of social system according to the Varnas and Ashramas. So the Varnas means the caste, and the different Ashramas. The Ashramas are one, the Brahmacharya, the Grahastha Ashrama, that is the family. Brahmacharya means when they are young, unmarried. Then Grahastha, family. Then the Vanaprastha Ashrama, that is when they become, they go to the forest to do practices, and finally sannyasa. So it is maintained that the system is meant to help man to develop his highest spiritual possibilities. So understand, so when we talk about the caste system, this is a big confusion in the mind of everybody. They say, oh, caste system is so prevalent in India, and it was, people were divided into Shudras, the lowest caste, Vaishyas, who were above them, and the Kshatriyas, who were the warriors, and then the Brahmanas, who was the highest caste. So though the Brahmana is given the highest place in the social scale, it is given in view of his high character, ideal, that is to set, and the important part that he has to play in the welfare of the society. So why has he been given the highest one? Because he has to set the level of the high character. The character has to be impeccable. So he was the custodian of the Veda, who mastered it and transmitted it to the next generation, who lived according to its ideals and practiced the forms of worship and rituals inculcated by it. So what does a Brahmana has to do? He has not only to study Vedas, but he has to practice it. So this is where the caste system fell, because they only studied Vedas, and they said, oh, we are greater than all of you, and they did not practice what they studied. So when that started going down. It was a belief of the times that the performance of the Vedic rites was very necessary for the society to be in harmony with the divine agencies, and through this harmony to attain general well-being and prosperity. So harmony with what? With nature and everything around you. So the Brahmana was the master of these Vedic rites. So when they did these Vedic rites, why did they do? So to bring about that harmony. As you know, when you do that homa, as many of you have attended the Homa, you can see the change that occurs. And there are certain types of homas, different types of homas when you want to have rain, or when there is too much rain, when there is less rain, and when you don't have a child, when you want to have a child, when you want to get married. All these different varieties of homas are there. So you can do anything, and you can see the result. So hence the Brahmana was of supreme importance for the general social good. The Brahmana's importance stems only from his character and piety, and not from wealth or power or position. So this is what we have to understand. So how much of a devotee he was, and what was his character, and what did he practice in life, and not from his wealth or power. And he is never a rich man. Brahmanas, as you know, were always poor. His livelihood is to be had from teaching, officiating at sacrifices, gifts that come unasked, and from fallen grain collected from fields and grain markets. So that's how they lived. And the last is considered the most superior livelihood for him. In times of invasions, revolutions, and general social unsettlement, when his usual livelihood is not available, he can do agriculture or practice some trade, but never should he go for the livelihood of a dog, namely service under mean people. So that's what he should not do, even during the worst periods. When good times return, he should again depend only on his ordained livelihood. So when there is bad time, what the Brahmana should do? He should do agriculture, produce his own food, and eat that. While the hereditary principle is recognized in determining the Varna or the caste of the persons, it is also maintained that if the qualities of a particular Varna are not seen in one born in it, his Varna is to be changed. So if he is according to the caste where he was born, and if the quality does not reflect there, then his caste should be changed. That's what they are saying. Then suppose if he's a warrior and he was born into the Kshatriya, but what happens? They're saying there are many examples of Kshatriyas becoming Brahmanas. So it's not fixed that, if you are born in a particular caste, you cannot become, or you cannot go to a higher caste. Or vice versa. If you are born in a higher caste, you cannot go, according to the quality of the actions that you do, you will become a person of a lower caste. So that's how the Brahmanas became transformed into Shudras and Vaishyas. Because instead of doing all these things, they started this as a business. As you can see today, what is happening? All the Brahmanas are doing the Vedic rites as a business. They will say, okay, we'll do this Homa, that Homa, but give us how much? $1,500, $2,000. So it's kind of a, it's business now. So the most conspicuous examples noticed in the Bhagavata are the sons of Emperor Bharata. Many of them Brahmanas, and the famous Navayogis who appear in the 11th Skanda and give a most impressive exposition of the Bhagavad Dharma came from among them. And this liberalization of the hereditary principle takes the wind away from the sail of criticism directed against the Varna system that it was devised to preserve the vested interests of some section of the society. So that's how you can see that you can oppose the criticism, because now it was the caste system that brought about so much problem. And though at certain period of the hereditary factor became the main objective consideration in determining the Varna, the caste, it is basically founded on the dominance of one or the other of the qualities of Prakriti, that is Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. And that is why change of Varna is sanctioned when the characteristics of an individual do not tally with those of the caste in which he is born. And in the moral consequences of action also, variations are recognized according to the dominance of one or the other gunas. So according to the three gunas, the sattvic, rajasic and tamasic, you can just put them in different systems, caste systems. So that's what they are saying, even though they are born as in a particular caste. So the actions are in line with one's nature, form one's swadharma, means one's duty or natural duty, and this is determined by one's dominant qualities. Any defect inherent in one's duty will not cause sin or downfall to an individual, but to a person at higher levels of spiritual evolution, it can be morally harmful. Thus, a kind of moral relativity is recognized according to the state of the man's spiritual evolution. And moral susceptibility and moral downfall are more at the higher levels of spiritual evolution than at the lower. And this is illustrated by the analogy that a fall is possible only to one who is standing and not to one lying low. So he's saying that in any time you be humble, then the fall is not going to happen. And even if the fall happens, it's going to not bring so much harm. But if you are higher in the strata, then the fall will be much more painful. Nonetheless, virtues indicating a very high standard of moral excellences are listed as common to all Varnas. These are the 30 numbers that are listed as follows: truth, kindliness, austerity, purity, forbearance, discrimination, control of the mind, control of the senses, avoiding infliction of pain on others, continence, charity, study of scriptures, straightforwardness, contentment, service of holy men, gradual withdrawal from works and rituals with selfish motives, preparedness to face failure of plans and accept disappointment, avoidance of too much of speech, self-criticism, giving food to other living beings, seeing the Lord in all beings, special perception of divinity in man, and practice of the highest way of devotional life adopted by great men, consisting in hearing, hymning, remembrance, service, worship, salutation, dedication of all action, friendship, and complete self-surrender. If all these virtues are common to all the four Varnas, one would feel that they must all alike be at a very high stage of moral and spiritual evolution. And the grading of any Varna as more tamasika than therefore lower may appear meaningless. So you cannot grade any Varna if you look at it from this point. So it may, however, be interpreted that though the virtues are common in their application to people at different stages of evolution, there can be gradation in the rigor of the disciplines, just as in regard to a topic in science like electricity, lessons of varying grades can be given to persons according to their standard and mental equipment. So this is what they say. And the Bhagavata, as a rule, teaches uncompromising renunciation. In some places like Prahlada's hymn, the life in the household is criticized and condemned. But here in this section, a very balanced view is taken. And all ashramas means even Grahastha ashrama, Vanaprastha ashrama, and Brahmacharya are given equal importance, just like sannyasa. So it's all important. And though the ashrama of the sannyasins is held up as the crown of human life, it is maintained that if a person lives according to the ideal set forth for a householder, moksha can be attained even while continuing to live at home. So don't think that moksha is only for sannyasins or people who have renounced. Even moksha can be had for a person who takes a grahastha life. So that's what you're saying. All different ashramas, the four ashramas are equal. And no matter which one you take, if you live according to the prescribed austerities and the devotional qualities, if you have those qualities, then no matter wherever you are, it will lead you to liberation. So this is the essence of this chapter. So we'll start with the chapter in the next session. Om Amriteshwariye Namah. Amritanandamayi Jai Jai Sadguru Rubini Ma Mangalakarini Ma Vande Karuna Nirjari Ma Jai Jai Sadguru Rubini Ma Mangalakarini Ma Vande Karuna Nirjari Ma Prema Tarangini Ma Jai सुहासिनी माँ
प्रेम तरंगिणी माँ जय जय विमल सुहासिनी माँ
शुभ्रवरणल से वंदे ज्योति सुखेशिनी माँ अमृतानंदमयी
जय जय सद्गुरुरूपिणी माँ मंगलकारिणी माँ वंदे करुणानिधि माँ
सत्यस्वरूपिणी माँ जय जय नित्य निरंजिनी माँ
सत्यस्वरूपिणी माँ जय जय नित्य निरंजिनी माँ
शक्ति महेश्वरी माँ वंदे भक्तिरसोन्मणि माँ अमृतानंदमयी
जय जय सद्गुरुरूपिणी माँ मंगलकारिणी माँ वंदे करुणानिधि माँ
कर्म विधायिनी माँ नित्यमधर्म विभञ्जनी माँ
कर्म विधायिनी माँ नित्यमधर्म विभञ्जिनी माँ
जगदोद्धारिणी माँ वन्दे जगत्सञ्जारिणी माँ अमृतानन्दमयी
जय जय सद्गुरुरूपिणी माँ मंगलकारिणी माँ वन्दे करुणानिधि माँ
सद्गुरु ज्ञानमयी जय जय त्याग निधर्षिणी माँ
सद्गुरु ज्ञानमयी जय जय त्याग निधर्षिणी माँ
दुःख विमोचिनी माँ वन्दे सद्गतिदायिनी माँ अमृतानन्दमयी
जय जय सद्गुरुरूपिणी माँ मंगलकारिणी माँ वन्दे करुणानिधि माँ
प्रेम तरंगिणी माँ जय जय विमल सुहासिनी माँ
प्रेम तरंगिणी माँ जय जय विमल सुहासिनी माँ
शुभ्रवरणल से वन्दे ज्योति सुखेशिनी माँ अमृतानन्दमयी
जय जय सद्गुरुरूपिणी माँ मंगलकारिणी माँ
स्वरूपिणी माँ, जय जय नित्य निरंजिनी माँ।
सत्य स्वरूपिणी माँ, जय जय नित्य निरंजिनी माँ।
शक्ति महेश्वरी माँ, वंदे भक्तिलसोन्मणि माँ। अमृतानंदमयी,
जय जय सद्गुरु रूपिणी माँ। मंगलकारिणी माँ, वंदे करुणानिधि माँ।
कर्म विधायिनी माँ, नित्य धर्म विभंजिनी माँ।
कर्म विधायिनी माँ, नित्य धर्म विभंजिनी माँ।
जगदोद्धारिणी माँ, वंदे जगत संजारिणी माँ। अमृतानंदमयी,
जय जय सद्गुरु रूपिणी माँ। मंगलकारिणी माँ, वंदे करुणानिधि माँ।
सद्गुरु ज्ञानमयी, जय जय त्याग निदर्शिनी माँ।
सद्गुरु ज्ञानमयी, जय जय त्याग निदर्शिनी माँ।
दुःख विमोचिनी माँ, वंदे सद्गतिदायिनी माँ।
अमृतानंदमयी, जय जय सद्गुरु रूपिणी माँ। मंगलकारिणी माँ, वंदे करुणानिधि माँ।
अमृतानंदमयी, जय जय सद्गुरु रूपिणी माँ। मंगलकारिणी माँ, वंदे करुणा निर्झरि माँ।
अमृतानंदमयी, जय जय सद्गुरु रूपिणी माँ। मंगलकारिणी माँ, वंदे करुणानिधि माँ।
वंदे करुणा निर्झरि माँ।
वंदे करुणानिधि माँ।
वंदे करुणा निर्झरि माँ।
वंदे करुणानिधि माँ।
वंदना करूं मैं तेरी, मुख में है तेरा नाम। जग के तुम पालन करता, तुम हो कृपा निधान।
वंदना करूं मैं तेरी, मुख में है तेरा नाम। जग के तुम पालन करता, तुम हो कृपा निधान।
वंदना करूं मैं तेरी, मुख में है तेरा नाम। जग के तू पालन करता, तुम हो कृपा निधान।
वंदना करूं मैं तेरी, मुख में है तेरा नाम। जग के तुम पालन करता, तुम हो कृपा निधान।
जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा। सच्चे मैं तुम ही मेरे, हे गौरी नंदना।
जय गणेश
जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा, सच्चे में तुम ही मेरी हे गौरी नंदना।
जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा, सच्चे में तुम ही मेरे हे गौरी नंदना।
नाम में तेरे है शक्ति, सुमिरन से मिले भक्ति।
नाम में तेरे है शक्ति, सुमिरन से मिले भक्ति।
नाम में तेरे है शक्ति, सुमिरन से मिले भक्ति।
नाम में तेरे है शक्ति, सुमिरन से मिले भक्ति।
एक ही तुझसे है विनती, तुझ में लीन रहे मदे।
एक ही तुझसे है विनती, तुझ में लीन रहे मदे।
जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा, सच्चे में तुम ही मेरी हे गौरी नंदना।
जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा, सच्चे में तुम ही मेरे हे गौरी नंदना।
जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा, सच्चे में तुम ही मेरी हे गौरी नंदना।
जय गणेश देवा, सच्चे में तुम ही मेरे हे गौरी नंदना।
व्याप्त जगत में रहते हो, व्यक्ति भी तो हो जाओ।
व्याप्त जगत में रहते हो, व्यक्ति भी तो हो जाओ।
व्याप्त जग में रहते हो, व्यक्ति भी तो हो जाओ।
व्याप्त जग में रहते हो, व्यक्ति भी तो हो जाओ।
मन मंदिर में दर्शन देकर अंधकार बुझा 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 जाओ।
जय गणेश जय गणेश देवा, सच्चे में तुम ही मेरी हे गौरी नंदना।
जय गणेश देवा, सच्चे में तुम ही मेरे हे गौरी नंदना।
जय गणेश देवा, सच्चे में तुम ही मेरी हे गौरी नंदना।
जय गणेश देवा, सच्चे में तुम ही मेरे हे गौरी नंदना।
सच्चे में तुम ही मेरी हे गौरी नंदना।
सच्चे में तुम ही मेरे हे गौरी नंदना।
सच्चे में तुम ही मेरी हे गौरी नंदना।
सच्चे में तुम ही मेरे हे गौरी नंदना।
ಭಜಿಸುವ ಮೋದದಿ ಭಜಿಸುವ ಮೋದದಿ ಆನಂದ ಕಂದನ जित चोरण कृष्ण मुकुंदना। चित्तचोरण कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
चित्तचोरण कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
चित्तचोरण कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
चित्तचोरण कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
भजिसुवा मोददी आनन्द कन्दना
भजिसुवा मोदದಿ आनन्द कन्दना
भजिसुवा मोददी आनन्द कन्दना
भजिसुवा मोदದಿ आनन्द कन्दना
चित्तचोरण कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
चित्तचोरण कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
नवजलधर समनीलना मुरहर मधुमय रूपना
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 अगहर करुणा लोलना कैवल्यदायक कृष्णना
अगहर करुणालोलना कैवल्यदायक कृष्णना
अगहर करुणा लोलना कैवल्यदायक कृष्णना
अगहर करुणालोलना कैवल्यदायक कृष्णना
चित्तचोरण चित्तचोरण कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
चित्तचोरण कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
अगणित गुणमय देवना च्युतिಯಿಲ್ಲದ ಚ್ಯುತನ
अगणित गुणमय देवना च्युतिಯಿಲ್ಲದ ಚ್ಯುತನ
अगणित गुणमय देवना ಚ್ಯುತಿಯಿಲ್ಲದ ಚ್ಯುತನ
अगणित गुणमय देवना च्युतिಯಿಲ್ಲದ ಚ್ಯುತನ
ಘನ ಕರುಣಾಲೋಕೇಶವನ ಮುರಳೀಧರ ಮುಜಕುಂಡನ
ಘನ ಕರುಣಾಲೋಕೇಶವನ ಮುರಳೀಧರ ಮುಜಕುಂದನ
ಘನ ಕರುಣಾಲೋಕೇಶವನ ಮುರಳೀಧರ ಮುಜಕುಂಡನ
ಘನ ಕರುಣಾಲೋಕೇಶವನ ಮುರಳೀಧರ ಮುಜಕುಂದನ
चित्तचोरण 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 कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
चित्तचोरण कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
चित्तचोरण कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
चित्तचोरण कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
भजिसुदी आनन्द कन्दना
भजिसुवा मोदದಿ आनन्द कन्दना
भजिसुवा मोददी आनन्द कन्दना
भजिसुवा मोदದಿ आनन्द कन्दना
आनन्द कन्दना
आनन्द कन्दना
कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
आनन्द कन्दना
आनन्द कन्दना
कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
कृष्ण मुकुन्दना
जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता, जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता,
जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता, जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता,
जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता, जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता,
जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता, जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता,
अम्बे माता दुर्गे माता,
अम्बे माता दुर्गे माता,
अम्बे माता दुर्गे माता,
अम्बे माता दुर्गे माता,
तुम ओम करुणा की मूर्ति दास के सुन ले विनती,
तुम हो मां करुणा की मूर्ति, दास की सुन ले विनती,
तुम ओम करुणा की मूर्ति दास के सुन ले विनती,
तुम हो मां करुणा की मूर्ति, दास की सुन ले विनती,
संसारों से दे मां मुक्ति, जन्म का लक्ष्य कर दे पूर्ति,
संसार से दे मां मुक्ति, जन्म का रक्षा कर दे पूर्ति,
संसारों से दे मां मुक्ति, जन्म का लक्ष्य करते पूर्ति,
संसार से दे मां मुक्ति, जन्म का रक्षा कर दे पूर्ति,
जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता, जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता,
जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता, जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता,
अम्बे माता दुर्गे माता,
अम्बे माता दुर्गे माता,
अम्बे माता दुर्गे माता, दुखों की चिंता दूर कर दे, भाव भक्ति का दिल में भर दे,
दुखों की चिंता दूर कर दे, भाव भक्ति का दिल में भर दे,
दुखों की चिंता दूर कर दे, भाव भक्ति का दिल में भर दे,
दुखों की चिंता दूर कर दे, भाव भक्ति का दिल में भर दे,
तव चरणों में करूँ मैं अर्पण, तेरे लिए माँ है ये जीवन,
तव चरणों में करूँ मैं अर्पण, तेरे लिए माँ है ये जीवन,
तव चरणों में करूँ मैं अर्पण, तेरे लिए माँ है ये जीवन,
तव चरणों में करूँ मैं अर्पण, तेरे लिए माँ है ये जीवन,
जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता, जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता,
जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता, जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता,
अम्बे माता दुर्गे माता,
अम्बे माता दुर्गे माता,
अम्बे माता दुर्गे माता,
अम्बे माता
कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता, जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता,
जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता, जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता,
जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता, जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता,
जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता, जय कल्याणी जय भवानी देवी दुर्गे माता,
अम्बे माता 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 दुर्गे माता,
अम्बे माता
अम्बे माता
दुर्गे माता,
दुर्गे माता,
दुर्गे माता,
दुर्गे
अमृतेश्वरी मङ्गलम् प्रणमदा मुक्तिप्रदे मङ्गलम् भुवनेश्वरी मङ्गलम् सुहृदिना एकाश्रये मङ्गलम् अमृतेश्वरी मङ्गलम् प्रणमदा मुक्तिप्रदे मङ्गलम् भुवनेश्वरी मङ्गलम् सुहृदिना एकाश्रये मङ्गलम् हृदयेश्वरी मङ्गलम् हृदिलसत्तेजोर्मयी मङ्गलम् मृदुभाषिणी मङ्गलम् विजयदा प्रेमाकृते मङ्गलम् विजयदा प्रेमाकृते मङ्गलम् विजयदा प्रेमाकृते मङ्गलम् जननी वन्दे अमृतानन्दमयी मंगलारती माधवानी अमृतानन्दमयी माधा अमृतानन्दमयी जनमन निज सुखदायिनी माधा अमृतानन्दमयी मंगलकारिणी वन्दे जननी अमृतानन्दमयी माधा अमृतानन्दमयी सकलागम निगमादिषु चरिते अमृतानन्दमयी निखिलमयहर जननी वन्दे अमृतानन्दमयी माधा अमृतानन्दमयी प्रेमरसामृत वर्षिणी माधा अमृतानन्दमयी प्रेमभक्ति संदायिनी माधा अमृतानन्दमयी माधा अमृतानन्दमयी शमगमदायिनी मनलयकारिणी अमृतानन्दमयी सददं मम हृदि वसतां देवी अमृतानन्दमयी माधा अमृतानन्दमयी परिणोद्धार निरन्तर हृदये अमृतानन्दमयी परमहंस पदनिलये देवी अमृतानन्दमयी माधा अमृतानन्दमयी हे जननी जनि मरण निवारिणि अमृतानन्दमयी हे सदजन परिपालिनि जयदा अमृतानन्दमयी माधा अमृतानन्दमयी सुरजन पूजित जय जगदम्बा अमृतानन्दमयी सहज समाधिषु धन्ये देवी अमृतानन्दमयी माधा अमृतानन्दमयी माधा अमृतानन्दमयी माधा अमृतानन्दमयी ॐ जय 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 जननी वन्दे अमृतानन्दमयी मंगलारती माधा भवानी अमृतानन्दमयी माधा अमृतानन्दमयी माता अमृतानन्दमयी जय बोलो सद्गुरु माता अमृतानंदमयी देवी की जय।
असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु। लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु। लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः